take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Welcome to Life in Red.
So, Robin, I have a quick question before we start. My dad always said, if you're ever talking to a police officer, you always call them sir.
Yeah.
So do I have to refer to you as sir?
No, sir. You can refer to me as Robin.
I remember one time I was really nervous going through a bride program, and a female cop was there, and then instinctively I was just like, yes, sir. And she's like, sir? I'm like, oh, my God. Anyway, Robin, thank you for joining me at Silver Cop. Silver hair cop?
At the Silver Cop.
I should have wrote that down.
Silver hair cop. It is silver hair. I got silver hair.
And Dom?
Yes.
Yeah, you're going to have to lean right into the mic.
Yep.
So you were brought to me by Sabrina, who was on this podcast previously.
Yeah.
And we talked a lot about mental health and her story. And I know I've shared my story on this podcast a whole bunch. You come with kind of like a different story than most because I guess coming as like a first responder and as a police officer, you have a pretty unique story. So I'm going to take it right to the beginning and just we'll kind of work our way through it. So I don't know if you want to start kind of like your early career and getting through it, and then we'll get to the kind of like the diagnosis and the story.
Yeah, so I've been a police officer for 11 years. Actually 11 years on December 8th. So I just had my 11th year.
Did you get a fancy gift?
I didn't.
Oh.
No, just a coffee. So I was hired in 2008. Started my career. It's something I've always wanted to do. As a kid, I used to ride my bike around and pull over my friends in the neighborhood. I grew up in Bayshore. And I'd pull them over and do traffic stops on my bicycle. So it's something I've always wanted to do. And when I got the call in 2008, I was really excited and scared and nervous as my daughter says. And then you go from there. You get your uniform, and first thing I did was put it on at home and looked at myself in the mirror. I'm like, what the heck? Because any other police officer I've ever seen was a sir.
Exactly. Yeah, you're very high astute.
Yeah. So I put it on, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is real. And I went to our professional development center is at Algonquin College. So that's where we start before we even go to the road, before we even go to Ontario Police College, which will be OPC. I'll probably say that.
Mm-hmm.
So we go there and we kind of learn what Ottawa does, Ottawa Police, and meet everybody else that's been hired with us and kind of introduce ourselves there and kind of get the rundown of policing in Ottawa. And then you go off to OPC, the Ontario Police College. And that's 3 months. So you're 3 months away. And then you learn everything about policing. So they teach you the basics, from how to speak, how to drive your car, obviously how to shoot a gun, all the arrests, all the laws. So there's provincial and federal laws. Then you have to write your exams, midterms. It's just basically just like you're in college again or university.
Yeah. So pretty it's a whole university basically course degree on becoming a police officer.
It is, yeah.
So lots of training.
A lot of training.
Yeah. Okay.
A lot to take in, and it's like, whew, man.
Yeah.
This, I started at 31, so I was one of the older ones in the class. So it was, I was like, I've been out of study mode forever. So it was a bit more, not trickier, but it was just, I put that on myself. Yeah. So, anyways, I got through it obviously successfully. And then you get back and you go back to PDC at Algonquin, and then you get put with your coach officer. So then with your coach officer, you do 500 hours. And that's good because it's like, then you're really out there and you're on the road. And then you're kind of learning. They basically say, okay, everything you learned at OPC, throw it out the window because now we're going to teach you how it's really done on the road, right? So
I'm sure everywhere is kind of different too. what an auto officer might teach you is maybe a little bit different from, say, a Toronto or OPP or what, because I guess they get a lay of the land. They know the people. They know how everything kind of works.
Yeah, and that's it. I can't speak for what they do in Toronto, what they do at the other services, but I know each service has their own way of doing it. We all follow under the same codes, like Criminal Code of Canada,
obviously,
provincial codes and all that, and then the code of ethics and police codes. And, but yeah, in Ottawa, so you get on the road and you're this fresh officer in this pressed uniform, and you look at your coach officer and you're like, for me, it was a male officer, and I'm like, well, this guy is not, he doesn't look like he ironed his shirt, because that's all you do when you're at OPC.
Right.
You're like, oh, you got to iron, you get checked on your clothing, your shiny boots, and you're like, okay.
That discipline factor type thing.
Which is great, which is good, right? So, but yeah, then you get to the road and you're there, and for me, you don't know what to expect. So you go out, you're, fresh faced, and you're like, this is going to be great. What's going to happen? And for me, on my first day, we got a murder.
Oh,
so I was like thrown right into it. So
no kidding, yeah.
So when I got to the call, I won't go through the whole call because it's going to be before the courts again. But when I got to the call, I remember walking through the door and thinking like, oh my gosh, what is this? This is crazy. And then I was like, okay, where are the cameras? Okay, this isn't real. This is like set up.
Like
but it was CSI
like type thing.
Oh yeah, there was the like everything you see in movies. And I used to watch the first 48, which is a detective show in the States. And I remember looking, and I'm like, this is exactly what it's like. And it was so surreal. But at that moment, I thought, this is going to change me. I was just, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to look at the world the same way. And that was like, at that point, I don't think it really hit that effect on me. I felt, okay, this is weird. How can someone do that to somebody?
Yeah.
But at that point, I didn't really know the effect that it had.
When you were like going through the training, all those years of school, was this type of stuff discussed? It like were people like, look, you're gonna see some horrible things, and you're gonna see them before a lot of other people.
Yeah.
Like, here's how you prepare for it. Here's some tips and tricks. Like, take a walk. I know that's one of those basic things. Did you feel, I know no one could be prepared for it, but did you feel like there was at least a little bit of a baseline where you're like, okay, like I can go back on my notes here, stage the scene, don't empathize. I don't know what it is, but
unfortunately, there's not enough training to get you prepared for something like that. They do talk about it, but they don't drive it home the effects that it can have. They talk a bit about mental health and like the possibility of the effects, and certain things will affect some officers that don't affect others, and the dealing with it. And they talk about the old school mentality of policing where you laugh it off, dark humor, and unfortunately go to the drinks.
Yeah.
Go out after shift.
Every cop show in the 80s.
Right. Yeah. But they don't hone in on that enough. They talk about going to get help if you feel you need it, but there's no aftercare. There's no, when you go in situations, there's not enough done. And you can't force anybody to go and do it. But for me, they need to emphasize that more.
Yeah, because it would seem like being a police officer, there's so much that goes into it. So there's not only this mental health aspect that we're talking about, and the experiences of trauma, I'm sure, and dealing with these gruesome scenes, but you're interacting with the public constantly in all these different situations, sometimes not stressed, sometimes high stressed. You have to deal with each person individually. There's all the laws you have to follow. Am I doing everything? Am I going to blow the case? And this is just me, who's totally outside, who just, like you said, knows detective shows. I'm like, this job is like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it would seem it's impossible to be perfect at being a police officer because there's too much to it for like people to truly grasp. You can be a good officer, but like it's just to be that quote unquote perfect. Like it's it's almost it is to me. It's an impossible task to ask people to try to do this and keep everybody orderly and safe. And
it is almost the impossible task.
So then on the meantime, it's like, okay, so I'm trying to worry about everyone else. Like how are you supposed to worry about what's going on with you?
And that's it. As a police officer, you put the safety of others first before yourself, and that's such an unnatural thing to do. You don't when you go out to your house and you get in your car, the first thing you do is you put yourself in safety first, right? You buckle up and you take all precautions to get home at the end of the day. Now in policing, you still take all those precautions. You take precautions when you're out on the road, when you're going to calls. But if there's imminent danger or if there's a shooting or anything, we're there. Like I'm paid to put myself in the line of fire.
Yeah. And your job was everyone's running one way, you're running into
we're
it.
running towards, as they say, running towards the gunfire, the danger, while we're trying to get everybody else away from it.
Right.
So it's a very unnatural thing to do, to train your brain and your body to say, okay, I'm going to go towards that.
Mm-hmm. So you were at your first scene, you kind of realize, okay, what I'm seeing here, this might change me. What are some of the other things that led along your career as we start progressing more towards today, that kind of stand out to you in your mind that really that took you to the point where, you know, I'll let you tell the story of what happened, but some major like sticking points for you.
Yeah, so it's an accumulation of things I see.
Okay.
And it's an add up of the things. A lot of them were suicides, you know, or death of other officers, and you know, when I first started, Constable Chapnick was murdered. So that was it. Like I was young in my career when he was murdered at the Civic Hospital. So you know, you talk about that as well at OPC, and you talk about the possibility of other officers or yourself being killed and not finishing your career, right? But when it happens, you're like, holy shit,
right?
You know,
no, you can swear on the podcast. It's fine.
Like, holy shit, like this is fucking real.
Yeah,
you know, and it floors you because you're like, so when he was murdered, I was working till 4 a.m. I was woken by my phone going off, people saying, you know, are you okay? Because they don't release the name right away, and I'm like, yeah, what the heck is going on? And like, you didn't hear, and then I heard obviously, and then I was up. So from there, I went to shift that night again. So you have to put those emotions aside, right? And again, that's an unhuman, an unnatural thing to do, because, you know, growing up, I mean, I was taught like it's okay to have your emotions. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be sad or happy. And you know, I had that upbringing. But as policing, when we're on scene, when we're doing things, we have to suppress those emotions. We have to push them down because we can't break down in front of people, right? Then there's also the whole stigma of like we're cops. There's a book out there, Cops Don't Cry, written by a wife of a police officer, and it's true. Where you're taught to be like you're a different breed, right?
Yeah. You're in the face of tragedy. You have to be the one calm.
Yeah. And that's where the trouble can start, because if you don't release those emotions and you just keep bottling them and pushing them down and piling them up, eventually it's gonna the bucket. It's gonna overflow, right? So you know, like I've been to a lot of suicides, and then what I started doing is sitting there. So if I sat with somebody that just died or committed suicide, I would be like, okay, what were they doing? Who were they? What were they doing the night before? What were they doing right before this moment? And I started putting myself in their shoes, which isn't a bad thing, but as long as you can control it. And what I didn't control it. I started doing the old school thing and joking, and you know, the dark humor came, and I drank. I mean, I don't know if I was an alcoholic per se, but I had drinks, and I turned to drinks because it would numb the pain, you know, and, but I didn't, you know, I'd go home, or I'd go out with the platoon mates, and I'd have a few, and then I'd go home, and I would just, you know, try and forget it and cut that out of my mind. But eventually, I mean, the faces come back in nightmares, night terrors, and then they don't go away. And then you start thinking, okay, well, when am I going to die? When's my turn? You know, and mine manifested so much. So in 2000 and probably 2015, 2016 for sure was the really bad year. It just manifested into thoughts, dark thoughts, weird thoughts, you know, and almost like it was an outer body experience for me, that I didn't feel like I was in my life, a part of my life. Like my kids, I'd look at my kids, I was like, I didn't want them around me. I started pushing people away, isolating myself. I didn't have, at the time, I didn't have a good support system at home, unfortunately. So I didn't have that for me. So I was kind of isolated by the person I was with at that time, my wife. And so I was like left on my own. My poor mother would get phone calls at 3 a.m. of me just paranoid and crying and panicking and wondering, you know, it's hard to explain what I was going through, but it manifested so much that I started what's the word? Oh my gosh, the word's gone. But I was having a shower one day, and all of a sudden I was like, what if this isn't real? What if this is not my life? And I'm in, honestly, like a fucking loony bin. And I'm thinking that this whole thing was my life. So psychosis is the word I'm looking for. So it started, I'm like, oh my gosh. And that I thought was the scariest thing. But that just, it kept going. And I hadn't spoken to anybody about this. I hadn't talked to anybody about these feelings. I had thoughts, like a thought would flash in my head. I'm like, I wonder what those people would think if I just took my gun out and started shooting. And then I'm like, whoa. Then I was starting to get scared of my gun.
It's kind of, that reminds me, speaking of Sabrina, who we mentioned off the top, that was also her. And I was trying to get a sense of what that feeling is like in the moment. I'm going to ask you the same thing. So, you know, in retrospect, you can sit there and talk about, yeah, this is what I was going through. This is what I was feeling. You've received the diagnosis. So like now you look back, but during that moment, during this time, like, did you recognize this was all happening? And I'm curious to find out. So when I give some of my talks, one of the things that I say is like, while I'm speaking, I'm like, yeah, you know, I had anxiety and I had depression, but in the moment, and when I got up to the point where I tried to commit suicide, like none of that was like registering as things happening. It was just in the moment, you don't even realize it. So like while you're going through this, like, is it just day to day for you? Like this is where I'm at now. This is my life. Like when the psychosis is happening, you're scared of your gun. Like, do you reckon you're like, whoa, like something might be wrong here? I know maybe not to the extreme end with the psychosis, but like going out and drinking and the anxiety and depression and the nightmares. Like, do you recognize it at the time that it's like, I'm starting to lose a grip a little bit? Or is it just like, just try to move on, just keep going? Yeah.
When it first started, in the beginning, it was that you just like, okay, whatever, I'll just keep going and keep moving through it. It's not going to, this isn't that, you know, you get a grip of it and you're like, okay, that's not real. But then they start coming in stronger. They're more, the time between them is shorter. So you're like, okay, maybe I am kind of losing my shit here, you know, and maybe there is something wrong, but I still didn't go because that whole stigma of being a police officer and not talking about it, it's so prevalent. It's and it's so strong because I was like, I can't go and say something. They're going to take my job. They're going to take my gun.
Right.
I have a family. so there's that stigma of cops don't cry. You got to be tough. You're tougher than, you're a breed apart or a different breed, right? All that is like piling on top of all this other stuff. So now I'm fighting with these thoughts and dark moments where, I'm not really like, and then the thought of like, oh shit, I can't say anything, can't talk about it because I'm going to lose my job. So now I'm in a battle with myself. So then for me, it was like that just fed those anxieties, fed those thoughts, and fed the feelings, right? That to a point where I was like, I have no control, and I was like, I started thinking like, I get it, why people commit suicide. I can see why someone would kill themselves. So I started sympathizing, empathizing with people that kill themselves, and and I got so far down that funnel that suicide was my way out. And I thought, this is the only way I can stop this, because I can't stop it. I can't get rid of these thoughts. I can't get rid of this feeling. It was like, it's so hard to describe, and you've been through it, that it's this pit, and it's this darkness, and this is like fogginess, and this whole thing where you're just like, this isn't even real, and it would just be better to not deal with it. So there was, just before I went, I was going into the change room at the end of shift, and I was taking out my gun, and I was looking at it, and I was like, maybe I'll just put it to my head just to feel what the metal feels like against my temple. And I was like, that, luckily for me, scared the shit out of me. And I was like, oh, I don't want to die.
The action or the feeling?
The
like that you could
the action
do that?
that I could do that, and that
okay.
I was like, I've got to go. I have to go talk to somebody. And actually, I should say that I did, before going to a doctor, I did speak to somebody, a fellow officer, and she was like, I'm having the same thoughts, or I was having the same thoughts, and I went and talked to somebody, and you need to go talk to this doctor. So the doctor that I went to, Dr. Murray, he's an ex-OPP officer. And when I talked to him and I told him about what I was doing and with the gun against my head, and just to see what it would feel like, that's when he was like, you don't understand, like you were very close, because the next point would be like, let's pull the trigger and see how far I can go. Right. So as much as I didn't have a plan, it was kind of already working its way in without me even really knowing about it, because that was the only way I could stop what was happening in my head and stop what was happening with my body. The psychosis, the like, this isn't real. Like, I'm not real. This family's not real. Those aren't my kids. It was the scariest. Like
a complete dissociation from reality.
Yeah.
That, to me, so even as involved with the mental health community as I've become, I've never heard that, like, your story of it happening kind of like organically, like where like most people have a plan. I had a plan. I've talked to people on this podcast, and they always like, it was well thought out. This is what I'm going to do, and that's how it's going to be done. But for this, I've never heard that. It just like step incrementally, just step by step, that you're just moving it without really realizing it.
Yeah.
Like, thankfully you did. Like, but like, I think that's an important point to illustrate to people listening, that like there's different ways this can happen. And like you said, that you can start thinking, like you started putting yourself of the people who did commit suicide and being like, oh, like, okay, maybe if they were experiencing it, I understand it. That, like, to me, that I've never heard it, and like that's scary.
Yeah,
that really is.
Well, and I think that's the scary part about suicide, because I don't believe that every suicidal person has a plan. I think some people just get to that point, like I was, and it just happens because for whatever reason they don't speak up and they don't talk about it and they don't come forward. And that's the terrifying thing, because I didn't, even myself, when Dr. Murray told me, like, you don't realize how close you were, I broke down, and that's when right after telling him all that, my whole story, I think I spoke for an hour that day, and I didn't take a breath, and I think he just sat there. He didn't really say anything, and that's the day that I was diagnosed with PTSD. And I don't think I realized how close I was. But it was the only way in my mind at that point that it would end, because I thought I can't live the rest of my life like this.
Yeah. So this was 2016.
2016, so end of 2016,
right.
And I was diagnosed in 2017.
So another point of my talks is I talk about, me leading up with my mental illness story, that no one was talking about it openly, so I didn't recognize anything was really wrong going, like, of my thought process. So in terms of, like, what you were going through, for me, 2015 was, like, a pivotal year, because that was, like, a big social media Bell Let's Talk kind of, like, transition into the world where, I shared my story, but it just kind of seemed like that social media started to be taken over that day, where it was always before, but, like, people were really starting to share stories as social media was starting to progress into what it is today. So, you got your diagnosis in 2016. Before then, people still weren't really talking about it in society in general, but we, at least from the outside, people understand that first responders typically do have support that some other people don't. So I'm wondering what the support was like for officers or anyone else like that. I'm sure you had a number or you had people to talk to, but what was, like, the education process about it? Like, was it just like, here, just call this number if you need help? We know that doesn't work.
Yeah.
What was, like, the scene like? Because obviously you felt like you couldn't have someone to talk to. Mm-hmm. I'm sure the support was there, but, like, how was that fed?
Yeah, so it's like I said, that whole fear of losing the job, and the stigma tied behind what's police officers being strong, and we're not supposed to be affected by things the way other people are affected. That was the big thing that held me back. The support is there through EAP, Employee Assistance Program, right?
Right.
So there is support out there, but it's not pushed. There's no education for people to know the signs of someone that's not talking, right? Because I went to calls. I was still going to calls and feeling all this. So I would be going to calls, panicked inside, and on the outside, I was taking care of a situation that I was in. So I was going to the death calls. I was going to suicides still, all the while suffering inside. And now looking at these people that have committed suicide, thinking, like, I get it. Like, but no one came to me and said, Robin, you've been a bit different lately. Yeah. Is everything okay? Like, there was none of that. So that's what for my advocacy is to bring that to light, to say, that it is okay to not be okay. I know, cliche, right? But to say that and to teach people to see the signs of somebody that's suffering without them speaking. Which is hard. It's
hard, but that's exactly kind of, my beef with, not beef, but with society, that we just, it's like, yeah, like, if you're feeling wrong, like, bad, just call a number. Yeah. And you're like, some people might, I know I have, but, like, when, we're in the frame of mind of someone like you who's now maybe going through psychosis, or that's a complete detachment from sort of a reality, you're not going to pick up the phone and call somebody.
No.
Like, you need to have someone rely on. And a big thing I have, just being in the regular workforce, is the fact that, like, managers have zero training in this type of thing. So they're just like, it's an employee like me. It's like, hey, you're a manager now, go. And then, you manage someone like me who's, like, has all these, like, issues and needs, like, certain supports. Yeah. And, like, my manager's just like, thankfully we have a great relationship and we can really talk about it. And I'm open, but not everyone's like that.
Yeah.
And not every manager's like that. So, like, you're just throwing people to the wolves and just be like, yeah, call a number, or here's a little info sheet. It's like, no, you really need, like this full-on support network of not only people but resources, and it has to be more than just a number to call or an app. like an informal app where you're just messaging someone like, hey, I feel like shit. Oh, are you okay? Like, no. Like, you need support. So especially, and that's just the workforce. I had a gentleman named Michael Dixon on the podcast before, and he is a funeral director, and he started a peer support group for funeral directors. But it's a similar thing that he was going to calls, and I didn't understand that, like, funerals, people have to pick up calls, and you see, bodies and suicides, and you're the one who has to kind of clean it up. And, like, you just, as a member of the public, you understand, oh yeah, first responders see the worst things. But that's all it is to us. It's like, oh, they must see really bad things. It's not, like you said, like a complete depiction of like an actual Criminal Minds murder scene. That like you're seeing this and you have to deal with this.
Yeah.
That like the stress and the turmoil, and you can see what it did to you and so many different people. It's just, it's to just, here's a number, go and call. It's not enough. Absolutely not.
It's not, and it's not as easy because with me, I can't speak for everybody, obviously, but for me, it was also a trust thing. There was like a lot of my mind was telling me like, oh, you don't want to trust that or tell somebody that or tell that person, because there was break of trust in my life around that time as well, and it was just the calling the number, it's great, but then you get off the phone and you're still alone.
And then what? Yeah,
you're okay, thanks, and the person, then you start, depending on who you are and how you are, you hang up the phone, you're like, that person thinks I'm a fucking loser. You know what I mean? Like, I am a loser.
Yeah, they must think I'm crazy or something like that.
Yeah.
So once you finally shared, you got your diagnosis, like, what were some of the things that you had to do to try to like reshape your life and heal?
Yeah.
Because I think that's also an important part. It's like, the story, but like, what's the work you had to do to get better and start healing and start fixing things around you?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, there's always obviously all the medication out there, right? I'm against medication that's my own personal thing. Okay. So, my journey of recovery and healing is a lot longer than some. However, I feel that my outlook on medication, and I think everybody should do their own thing. And if they need the medication at the time, then take it. For me, I feel it just masks what's going on. Mm-hmm. So, or kind of blankets it. And if you're not talking about it, if you're not going to therapy, if you're not working on it, however way you do it, then you're not going to get better. That's my personal opinion.
Well,
I don't want that to be
I'm on medication.
Yeah.
But I share the same belief. This isn't like, it's not just to take a pill and
yeah. And don't get me wrong. Like I said, like I hope it came across that I don't think medication is wrong.
It's not for you, and that's fine. Right? I know a lot of people like that.
Me, because I wanted to, and I wanted to get better, and do it on my own. And I have maybe a bit of a fear of medication, right? And I don't want to.
A lot of people, they don't want to feel that numbness, and I know like people feel kind of like the same thing you were, that like a dissociation and just a lack of general emotion. You just become kind of plain. Thankfully, that's not my experience with medication. I mean, there are side effects like everything, and it's not a whole thing about medication. I know you're not against medication. But I also, when I'm talking about, like, a lot of people just think, oh, I got my medication, everything's going to be all right now. And it's like, no. And I had to learn that the hard way. Yeah. That there's real work. That goes into it. Yeah. So, I mean, what sort of things did you, I know, like therapy. Yeah.
Yeah. So through the therapy, I did, some cognitive therapy, and what's the one I just did was, oh my gosh, I always forget it. You have two little buzzers in your hands, and they go off back and forth in your hands. So you have one buzzer in your left, one in your right, and your left. Not that the people could see what I was doing. I made a mistake there. And then you close your eyes and you relive the whole experience. So the trauma. So as you're doing it, the buzzing back and forth creates almost like a rapid eye movement. So basically you go through, this is all cognitive behavioral therapy. And you go through the scenario, and you relive it, and then you change it. You do it again, and you kind of change something. What would you do different in that situation? Then you go through it again, and you kind of change it again. So there's stuff like that. A lot of like, you know, if I get a thought, or if I get a feeling, or if I get, you know, if I'm anxious, okay, where is this coming from? You know, what validity is behind that thought? Mm-hmm. You know, where did that thought come from? You know, and is there any truth behind it? You know, and I think, again, for some people that doesn't work. You know, and I think for me, it worked because I think I'm just I am stubborn. I look at my girlfriend.
As Dom nods his head, yeah.
And I'm very determined at times. And with this, I wanted to be better because the only other option was the bad option, right? The one. And I'd feared death, you know, and I was like, when am I going to die? That was the fear that began, right? Like, well, when am I going to die? Am I, you know, and that just manifested into like, I think that's the only way I can get out of it. So I was determined to make it work and to get rid of it. And it took a while, and there, you know, it was still scary while I was doing it. It was very hard for me to just be like, fuck you, brain, shut up. You know, this isn't real. That thought isn't real. You know, and I would get panic moments, and, you know, and I would go through the nightmare still. And I think, you know, and I think like what you said with the medication, where some people have that disassociation, it numbs them, and I think that's what I was really afraid of feeling that again, and feeling that horrible. It was like a horror movie for me.
Right.
It was so terrifying. So yeah, I just worked hard and hard and hard, and I'm not, you know, I'm still going through my recovery. I'm still healing, and I basically brought everything back to the surface again when I went public with my PTSD.
Right.
Because then I was like talking about it again and reliving kind of those moments and those memories, and, you know, and then I started having nightmares again. And the nightmares, I can't even, you know, they're always the same for me. I'm always a police officer, and there's always someone chasing me, but I can't see them. And then all of a sudden they're there in front of my face. Don't know who it is. Don't know what it is. And I wake up in panics. So yeah, my recovery is continual.
Yeah, I think that's also really important to note, and just common with everyone who kind of speaks out about their mental illness and mental health, that I always say it's a full-time job. Like, it might get better for some people, but I'm of a belief that, like, I don't think I'll ever truly be better, and it's just something I have to work through every single day. And it's important to note that it's just like, okay, I got my diagnosis, and then I did some really hard work, and here I am now sharing my story, and everything is great, and got the great this and great that, and you can too. You know, like, it's not quite like it. I mean, for some people, I'm sure it is, and good for them, but like it's the work.
Yeah.
And that's what scares a lot of people off. It's like the work that you have to go into it, not only physical work with exercise or with, you know, whatever it is, but like just that mental work. And when you're trying to recover through something, and you're putting this stress on your brain of like trying to recover, like that almost in itself is creating different emotions and things going through your mind. Yeah. And that it just, I hope it one day like subsides, and then you're just like,
yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like, I asked my doctor when I was diagnosed, I said, okay, well, you know, will I be able to get back to the road? Will I be able to go back to what I joined policing for? Right. And he said, I don't know. That's, you know, it's up to you, and obviously up to him for him to say, yes, you're good enough to go back to the road. You're healed enough or recovered enough to go back to the road. And I said, well, will PTSD, will I fully recover? Will it be gone? He's like, like you said, you're never really it's not gonna go away. It's classified as a brain injury now, right? PTSD.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so they're classified as a brain injury. So basically, it's gonna always be there. I learned to live with it. Live being the operative word, because I do live with it. It doesn't define who I am. I live with PTSD. and I live a full life, right? So I learn to do things differently, think things differently. I still get the thoughts. I still get moments where I'm down and dark moments and feeling depressed and feeling sad, you know, and like my girlfriend, Dom, she's seen it. And, you know, I sometimes will be watching something and it'll be on suicide and I'll just break down because it's close to home, right? It's fresh. Like that's always going to be there.
And that's what like truly a trigger is. I think we've kind of numbed the word in society with the internet and stuff with the word triggered, but like it's a clinical like thing that happens with people, right? Like there's things that happen that actually affect them real, take you back to the moment, relive trauma, you know, like I hate that society's made it kind of like a joke. Oh, you're triggering me. Yeah. But like that shit's serious.
Oh yeah.
I'm curious, Dom, if you want to join in the mic, because, you know, when I speak about mental health, I have people on here speaking about mental health. It's like, okay, we hear those stories, but you never hear necessarily who's affected by our stories. So I'm curious and share what you're willing to share. But what's it like, you know, living with, I'm sure he's kind of mean and scary.
Oh,
but,
yeah. Sure.
But like, you know,
I don't like him at all.
Do you? So something I'm always worried about is I don't want to put the weight of what I'm dealing with on my girlfriend or the person I love because or my family, because I'm like, I burden the weight. I don't want them to burden the weight. And she's always like telling me to cut that shit because don't be stupid.
Yeah, of course.
So like,
That's
you know,
your support.
Yeah, exactly. What's it like for you? You know, he has PTSD. We were talking about how his whole life. Just even hearing this story, I'm sure you've heard it, but what's it like for you?
Well, at first, like, it's like, you know, Robin got diagnosed in early 2017 and we actually met in early 2017. So this
wow.
was
Okay.
Yeah. So it wasn't like far off from like when he got diagnosed with PTSD. And I think like, you know, after like during our second date, you know, he said, I have PTSD. And I didn't take that like, okay, no, like that's fuck that shit. I'm not going to be with you because you have this. I'm going to support you because I like you a lot. And so, you know, it was at the beginning, you know, like going over to his house and then he'd be doing the dishes and all of a sudden he'd be like crying and like sobbing. And it was because he was remembering, you know, I think his last call was, you know, the one that really put him over. And, you know, he would talk about this call and how it affected him and how he could remember the face and how he could remember those moments and the sounds and, you know, the parents and all those kinds of things that was going on in that particular moment. And so, you know, those moments, those like, you know, that first year, 2017, was hard because I'd come home and he'd be crying and, you know, trying to figure out, okay, well, you know, what's going on. And it's hard because you don't really, I don't live with that.
Yeah.
You know, I've got my own mental health issues and, you know, again, like how you said, you know, you don't want to burden that person. He's not a burden. But yeah, it was really interesting. And then even like him waking up in the middle of the night, you know, freaking out, having panic attacks and, you know, that, you know, you just, I don't know. I think if you really want to be with somebody and you got to support that person.
Right.
So I think I was a really good support system.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, that's beautiful and wonderful. Because I think that must have been really scary for you to say that on your second date. You're like, I really like this person, and you know, I kind of got to be really like straight up because if we're gonna continue this, like she's gonna be like, what the hell is going on?
What, like both of us kind of came at each other with like, oh, like, you know, I've done this and I've got this, and it was just, yeah, I think it was important because we both really, really liked each other at the time. And yeah, I mean, if you're going to be scared of something like that, if somebody's saying, oh, I've got PTSD, then, you know, you should probably not continue. But
Right.
Well,
I think it was scary for you.
Yeah, that was it. That was the whole burden thing, right? I'm like, okay, I do like this girl. on the second date, right? But I was like, I don't want to burden her with my PTSD, so she has a right to know that I have this and that I do suffer and that this is very fresh. You know, even though it's fresh diagnosis, I'd been dealing with it and suffering for a year and a bit, right? So, well, probably longer than that, slowly as it went. But yeah, I just didn't want to burden her, and I didn't want her to have to be with somebody like that if she didn't want to. So she gets to make that choice, right? So yeah, It was terrifying because I'm like, I just finally met somebody. I'd been dating a bit, and I'm like, I'm not connecting with anybody. You know, and
that's not something in your Tinder profile.
No,
like, I have PTSD.
Exactly.
Right for me, PTSD. Swipe right for PTSD.
Right? That gives a lot of people an option to run. I remember when I was single, we laugh about it, but like it was a serious thing because like there's issues that will come up that, you know, it's going to be really hard to navigate, and I don't know if you're going to want to have to deal with that when you could go off and be with someone happy.
It, right?
Yeah.
And that's So
we laugh about it now, but I don't know. Like, even like, you know, when he said like, you know, we'd be sitting there and watching TV, and it was like moments where like, you know, somebody would have died or like somebody committed suicide, you know, like he would just like start wailing and crying, and he would cry for a long time. So like you have to be there for that person. You really have to comfort that person. If they need to talk, you got to be there for them to talk. And like,
I don't cry though. I'm a cop.
Right. He cries all the time.
I do too.
But you know what?
I cry at
think that's
commercials now.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know I'm getting old because now I'm crying at commercials.
But yeah, like, I don't know, like, you know, and recently, you know, he has started this journey where he has publicly come out with his diagnosis of PTSD, and that's not easy for him either, because you know there's these colleagues of his that probably are like, oh yeah, okay, like, oh, he's got PTSD, whatever, fuck that shit, like he's good, you know, he's not man enough or whatever. But you know what, it's serious, and it's not a joke, and I have seen it, and we still like deal with that. Like, you know, he when he came out on social media that he was diagnosed with PTSD, like, I don't even think that your kids really knew.
I think maybe not.
That's
like
that's been one of the biggest sticking points with me, because when I started, I was single, so I would just put anything on social media.
Yeah.
But now I've been dating someone for a little over a year now, and I realized I can't do that. But what I did all the time, I can't do anymore, because now maybe it's something I haven't told them, or this new part of my life, and you just put it out there on social media, not thinking, and like that's created some, you know, some learning things for me. It's like, okay, like I got to think about how this affects more than me as well. While it's still important we get the message out, that like I can't just be like, because I did that to my parents too. I didn't tell them about my suicide attempt. I put it on social media first.
Eek.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
that's tough.
And it's difficult, and learning to talk more in person and have those personal one-on-ones with people, instead of just, here's a Facebook post, everyone's like, what the like, what is going on?
And it was like, too, like, you know, the one thing that he actually shared with me when we first started dating was actually, so I guess like the diagnosis from, you know, Dr. Murray, like I read this like thick, I don't know, like manual almost, like of all of the calls. Well, the biggest ones.
The big ones
I
that
think,
affected me.
The biggest ones that affected him. And I was like, oh my God. Like the stuff that is in those calls and the things that he had seen and the things he dealt with, you know, like you said earlier, like, oh, cops, you know, like, oh yeah, they just go and they, you know, they deal with whatever they got to deal with and whatever, but you don't have an appreciation for what they do.
We've become so desensitized to not, you know, to war, to murder, to killing. It's on our movies, it's in our they like it's part of our pop culture now. That like, and a lot of the times it's a scene in a movie, and when you paint it vividly of like these things that you see everything that like even things they don't want you to see in movies because it's too graphic or grotesque.
Oh yeah.
Like that's what you have to deal with.
It's crazy.
And I remember, going back to Michael Dixon, he told me a story on Christmas Eve that he had to, I don't repeat it too much, but that he had to go to the scene of an accident on Christmas Eve and like a young family and the presents were scattered all across the highway. Like,
Yeah.
and even him just saying that to me, it's like, okay, yeah, that's really bad. But that doesn't paint the picture of what it's actually like to be in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you could pinpoint it, but like, if you could give a percentage to how many people who are in the police force that probably have PTSD, like, I would assume it's very, very, very high.
Yeah, it's so I kind of looked into that as well. Obviously, when I came forward with everything, and it's around, I think it was 28.77% of all first responders will or have suffered with PTSD in their career. That's like 70,000 first responders out of, oh my gosh, I think it was 100 and I can't remember.
I bet
Don't quote me on the number.
Yeah.
But it's around 70,000 first responders across Canada.
And truly, I bet the number is higher.
It's probably higher.
That,
I'm not a math wizard.
No, but we just talked about it. Like that stigma, especially around your whole profession, it's
Well, that's it. Those
still
are
there.
the ones that come forward and talk, right?
Yeah. Like
So
there's
imagine
probably
the ones
people
that
who
aren't.
answered no when maybe they're just in the beginning, right? When you're
Right.
just saying, I have some anxiety
Yeah.
or you have depression or maybe it's misdiagnosed.
Well, and that's it. It's amazing, since I did sorry to cut you off there, right?
No. Please.
but since I did go public with everything, the people that contact me and like send me messages and say, "Oh, thank you for your vulnerability," I was feeling this way and I didn't know. I think I'm going to go talk to somebody.
Yeah.
If it was one person, I was thankful when it was the first person that sent me that message. I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. This is exactly what I wanted. This is why I went public.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just kept coming in. I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. Why are people still sitting there in 2019? And like, it's not every day, thankfully, but I swear it's like every month you see another police officer's killed themselves. Another one's killed. We had in Ottawa.
One not too long ago, I remember the news inside the building. Like,
Yeah, so we had 2 officers within 5 years kill themselves. And I'm like, so when Roberts killed himself, we were on our way out of town and my phone was going off and I'm like, what the heck? It was my colleagues. Because they know about it. They were the first people at work, really, that I opened up to.
Right.
Because I trusted them. These are like people in diversity, race relations, and community engagement team that I'm on. They were the first people that I really trusted with divulging that before I even went public. So they knew what I was going through and that I was dealing with PTSD. So my phone was going off. We were going out of town. We were going to Prince Edward County. And it was like Friday, going off. And I'm like, she's like, Dom's like, just answer it. So I answered.
It was like the phone was going off literally every 2 minutes.
right.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck? I'm like, we're driving to Prince Edward County. Like, who's calling you? This is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was one of my colleagues, and she just said, I don't know if you've heard, but I didn't want you to hear it from somewhere else, and I just want to make sure you're okay.
Or even see it.
And she just said a police officer's killed themselves. And at that point, they didn't release his name.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, fuck. Like, not another. And it was at that moment that I was like, I can't sit on this. I'm Robin, like I'm not not anything special, but I was like, something had been pulling at me to kind of talk and kind of like advocate for it, right? And I talked to another officer at work, and I don't want to. Well, he's out there. He's the bearded cop,
Right?
So
Yeah.
I spoke to him because he's a big advocate for men's health and suicide prevention and mental health. So I kind of called him and I was like, can I, talk to you? And he was like, yeah, for sure. We sat and talked, and he was like, you know, he kind of backed me and he's like, yeah, do it, man. Like, go. More people out there talking about it, right? I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do it. So when I did it, I was like, I've got to, because I don't want to see, especially one of my, you know, a fellow officer, another Ottawa police officer, end their lives for what, you know? Like, I mean, I don't know what was going on with him. I don't know what he was dealing with, or if he tried to talk. I don't know, right? But from what it looks like, he was a great detective, great guy, and it was out of the blue. And that's the scary part about suicide, that it just, the people that do it, it's like, what the heck?
It's always
It
the
doesn't
never
make
saw that
sense.
coming type
Yeah.
thing.
So when I went public, I was like, I can't sit there anymore. I can't just fucking sit there. You know, I was trying to drive when we got that news, and I was like,
Yeah, can't.
you know, it's still fresh, and like,
Yeah, he was like really emotional, and you know, we agreed that weekend that we weren't gonna look at any social media. We were not gonna look at who it was or respond to any messages until we got home, so we could look at it together, so it wouldn't ruin our weekend, because things like that do affect him very, like, as you can see.
Yeah.
Nobody can see him, but it affects him a lot.
yeah. And this one, you know, and again, I suppressed those feelings, but we were on our trip, and I, you know, it was fine to do it for that point, and you know.
But I was supportive, because I said, if you want to look at it,
Yeah.
we'll look at it together. Like, we'll go through this together. It's not, you know, you're not alone. Like,
Yeah.
he's never alone.
Yeah.
But there are people who are alone in this process, and who, like, it's scary. And they're, like, I personally don't think that there is enough. Thank you. I don't think that there's enough support for anybody who's suffering anywhere, but especially, you know, like, for first responders. Like, it's scary, because they, like I said, like, I read that and I was like, I don't know how the fuck anybody could deal with that, because seriously, like, I have a hard time watching, like, horror movies. Like, I can't watch any gory movies, but reading that is like reading, like, a gory horror movie that somebody went through.
Right.
Literally went through. But yeah.
So while you were recovering, did you take some time off for that?
So in 2016, I took quite a.
Okay.
Now this was before diagnosis, so I didn't know what was going on, but I was like, I needed to take a lot of time. I ate all my sick time up, so much so that I got a check that was very low, that didn't cover my mortgage, and I was like, oh my gosh. So it was like, I don't know what crap. So then I kind of fell into a bit of debt through that, which, as we know, money issues can cause a lot of mental health issues. Threw me right down the barrel, and, you know, I was coming out of a separation, and I'm like, it was bad.
So there wasn't, like, did you have the option of, like, any extended medical leave for the, like, mental health? I know, like, if you had cancer, they probably would have granted it, but
so here's kind of goes back to what you had asked me earlier, the support out there. No one ever told me anything. I was having all this time off. No one came up and was like, what's going on? Are you okay? They were just like, okay. Oh, and then all of a sudden I got a check. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And they, so I called our, you know, finance, and they're like, oh, it's because you ate up all your IPP, your sick days. And I was like, great. I don't have enough to pay my bills. Oh, well, we can send you some back, and then you can just pay it off. I'm like, well, no.
Yeah.
I didn't want to, you know, like. So that goes to show you that I was off, and I have to eat up. I don't want to say how much sick time we have, but we have a lot of sick time, and nobody came forward to say anything.
is that kind of like their Band-Aid? That's like, I'll just have a bunch of sick days.
Yeah, because that's what. So there's a prime example is what. Oh, you have all these sick days. If you need a mental health day, just take a mental health day. Okay, perfect. I'll just go off because I'm fucking tired and sad,
Right.
and thinking about killing myself, and I'll just go fucking sit at home by myself.
Watch some good cartoons.
Yeah,
I'll come back tomorrow, chipper.
Yeah, I got a mental health day. Woohoo! right? There's not like, if I was a supervisor and I saw one of my employees anywhere taking all these sick days, would you not think, hey, can we talk for a sec? No.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Interesting.
The only thing that was said was like, oh, you're sure taking a lot of sick time. We're short on the road, eh?
Yeah, it's more looked at as like a negative, not like,
it is.
Do you need help? It's like, hey, like...
And I'll tell you right now, when I went off on PTSD and I actually left the road, I know for a fact that supervisors, one in particular, was poking fun at it on platoon, and they do, unfortunately. You know, unfortunately, there's still people out there that are like, well, how the fuck does he have PTSD? He's there. How did he
Right.
get it? You know,
Well,
like,
and it kind of goes to the whole thing. So, like, I didn't want to ask right off the top, like, did something big happen? Like, you answered it like it was accumulative, which
Yeah.
totally makes sense. But again, when you get that first impression of PTSD, something major happened.
Yeah.
and that's,
Right? Like, you were...
that's also part of that stigma.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a good thing to note that...
And that was the question I said I asked my doctor. I'm like, well, hold on. Like, I wasn't in a shootout. Like, I didn't have any near-death experiences. And that was the learning point for me with PTSD, that it doesn't matter. It's like this accumulative thing. It's this bucket, and all these calls are going into my bucket, and all these deaths, and all this and that, blah, blah, blah. And then that last one is what did it, right? And I say it's the last one that did it, but really it's all of them piled on top of each other. The last one just sank to the bottom and pushed everything else
Right.
out.
But I think like the important thing too is like it was to a point like he was getting so many suicide and death calls that people were calling him Officer Death. So it's like, and it was to a point too where you were saying that you know you would sign on, and you were scared that you were going to get a call that was a suicide or a death, because that's all you were getting.
Yeah, and that was my last call. And I for whatever reason, I don't know if people are believe or not, but so there's an early car on the road in the morning. So one person from day shift where I worked, and I worked out of West, would come in and log on so the night shift can start heading in, right? So I can take the calls that come in. So I remember sitting in the cruiser, and I was facing, so I was working on Huntmar, facing Huntmar Road, about to log on. So I filled everything in on my computer in the car, and I remember just thinking, like, fuck, there's going to be a call. There's going to be a dead body. I know it. And as soon as I hit the button, the MDT went off, the computer, and dispatch came over the air. We have a 28-year-old VSA, which is vital signs absent. And I was like, yeah, 10-4. Then I just sank, like, like I just knew. And I remember that's like, you know, that call, like her name's Amanda. That was like, she stuck with me till today. Like, I still remember her. And I remember what she looked like on her floor, and I remember her dad screaming her name and running in and laying down with her, like that. For me, was like, it was just like the scary part was that she was going through a lot of pain. She had broken her ankle as a young child, snowboarding in front of her house, and chronic pain. So it didn't heal properly, and she suffered from chronic pain. And I was like, I just couldn't do anything. It was the first time that I ever felt so helpless. And I couldn't do anything. The father's crying, the mom's crying, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I've got to ask these questions. I've got to ask questions. I got to talk to and I have my notebook out. And I'm like, I'm a fucking asshole. I'm like, sorry, I have to ask you a few questions here. And inside I'm dying. I just want to scream and like cry, right? Like and I was there the whole time. I was there for, all morning. I don't know how many hours I was there at the house, right up to body removal. the funeral home, which sends their body removal people to come and carry her out. And we stood by the door as she left, and I was like this family's worst nightmare. Like, the father went in the night because he heard a noise, looked at his daughter, thought she had hair on her face. Oh, she's asleep. She just must have had a dream or something, hit something. But it was blood, like she had passed away. Like and it's like, I can't do anything for these people, but I've got to do my job and I've got to go. And so I went, did my job, wrote down, did the report. And I was like, I would never suggest this. I went on, and this is where I was like, I want to know these people. Cause I was taken to that point where I'm like, I want to know who these people are. So I went on Amanda's Facebook, and on the face of it, she's this happy kid, full of life and, friends and family and like Christmas pictures. And I'm like, and she's laying dead on the floor at 28, and I was like, fuck, I can't do it. I can't do it anymore. Mm-hmm. It was the last one. I'm like, I can't. And at that point I was like, I can't. How am I going to be a cop for the rest of my life, or for the rest of my career? And I can't even, I'm dying inside. And I was like, I don't want to. I had a huge fear of failure when I was growing up. I used humor. I was, I'm a silly guy, and I hid behind my humor growing up through school. But I can't. There was no humor to hide behind here. There was nothing that I could hide behind. All these feelings and thoughts, they were there, and they were killing me inside. I had all this anger, this sadness, and I was like, I can't. I'm like, I don't want to live. I can't. I can't live. I can't finish my career, something I dreamed of doing. I don't even think I can finish the rest of my life because I can't live the way I'm feeling. Mm-hmm. So that call was like that call saved my life ultimately, because it got me to the point where I'm like, I can't live anymore. I don't want to live. I'm like slowly, not that I didn't want to live. I did want to live. Let me rephrase that. But I was slowly thinking like, okay, well, maybe I just like, to the point where I was wanting to touch the gun to my head and doing that. So ultimately I've never really come to this, but like Amanda kind of saved my life. Right. So, but I had to go through all that, like I wanted to go to the funeral, but I'm like, well, I don't want to, I might be that memory for them that the cop was here. And that's the last memory of our daughter that we have, all the fire and ambulance and the police officers, and we have to go through a room and like, we have to do this the whole time she's laying there. I'm not stepping over her, because I think that's stepping around her, and like, but I just kept looking at her. I'm like, she was a beautiful girl. Like, and I'm like, so sad that someone, and I'm like, I need to let people know that that's not, you don't need to do that. Like, there's more out there. There's help out there. And if my vulnerability and me reliving some of my feelings and my emotions and crying on air, or not a podcast, not on air, but on a podcast, then so be it. I want people to see that vulnerability and the transparency, and get the message out there that you're not alone. We're not alone. Ryan, Dom knows, like, it's more people suffer from it than we know. Right? Like,
that's the unfortunate thing, that when you get people, like when you share your story and so many people share it back with you, I don't know, I've said this, it's beautiful that people open up, and I want that. And then when you take a step back, you're like, there's a lot of people opening up, and there's a lot of, one of the big things that once I started opening up and I started speaking a little bit, and I working where I do, I'm just involved with a lot of charities and doing campaigns and sponsorships and what have you, and you just realize the immediate need for funding, because like the government, like, it just can't fund it all. Unfortunately, we don't have that type of money, and they could do a better job, absolutely. But when it comes down to everything, especially with mental health, we have a bunch of people coming out and speaking now. And then they're like, okay, I need help. And then they're like, okay, I'm ready. And people are like, gotta wait 6 months.
Yeah.
You know, unless you reach a crisis.
Right.
And that's the, you know, then you can get help once you're like at the bottom of the barrel. All these people who haven't reached that point yet are stuck in this limbo. Yeah. You know, and like you said, there's the medication aspect, but that's not going to solve it all. You know, there's all these other things that we do, exercise, if you do meditation, if you do, you know, Reiki or whatever you believe in that works for you, they have that, but like it's a combination of all these things together. And when you haven't received that help, that professional help, and you're trying to do it all on your own, or with people who might not be educated in the subject and all that, like it's just it's too much. So then you just realize like I'm all about funding now too. It's like, hey, let's talk about it, but let's also like raise some money for it too. It's
definitely, it's
a big thing. Do you find, so now you've opened up, you said you've had a few people reach out to you. Are you seeing change? Whether it's administratively with more resources being poured in, more people coming in to talk to you or being available, with officers sharing their stories or getting help they need? Like, are you it's slowly seeing a change? I can see probably not as quick as you would like.
No, of course not. But I think that's everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it in some services around Ontario. For example, Durham Police and York Regional Police. I was speaking to an inspector from Durham, and they had a course called Mental Health First Aid. And York Regional Police came in and they gave them the course. And this is basically a course to not only talk about your own mental health, but also what to look for in others when they might be suffering. There's a few places that put on courses like that. I think, not St. John's, Red Cross, I think they do one as well.
I know there's a few around here,
Yeah, so I actually reached out to York and Durham, and they've given me some contact. They're actually here in Ottawa, the people that run that course. So I'm going to try and get that course and become a trainer in that course and bring that to our service, to Ottawa Police. With Chief Slowly coming in, he's very, his vision for mental health and like morale in the service is like at the forefront. It's one of his big thing, and he's put
very progressive.
Yeah, he's very progressive. He's put a lot of the funding, I don't know how much, but quite a bit of funding towards mental health,
right,
and wellness for police officers, and just to bring the morale back up within the service. So I'm hoping, beyond hope, that that's gonna stick and that he's gonna follow through on that, because without the chief's backing, I'm just a guy screaming in the wind, right? Like it's where's it gonna go? It's not gonna it'll reach a few people, which is great, and I'm not. I love the fact that people have opened up to me, and there was a day where Dom's like, "Oh my gosh, can you get off your freaking phone?" I'm like, "I'm sorry, I'm just trying to answer these."
I know it's one of those things
because
too,
and I've got to give that balance too, right? Because I've, and the bearded cop, I don't want to say his real name on air. Are we on air?
That's
Hello?
okay.
I don't want to say his real name, but he was like, "Listen, you're not going to be able to answer everybody. You're going to be like, people are going to be messaging you." Yeah. And like, be okay with not answering everybody. But at the beginning I was like, I got to answer everybody. Oh my gosh, this person asked me this question. And I was like on my phone nonstop. And it
was a flood of people like coming in and saying, thank you for opening up, or even people with like their own mental health issues. And I was like, get off your fucking phone.
I know.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, I was like, okay, like I'm taking a back seat. I'm on the back burner. Like, I don't feel like, and that's hard.
I like, that's exactly like what I'm going through right now. So it's not only the mental health stuff, the podcast stuff, the work stuff. Like, I'm like you. I want to do good. I want to help everybody I can, every single person. And I eventually will probably answer the message, probably not right away, because there's also, I got to still take care of me.
Yeah,
I
of
can't
course.
that's
can't just take care of you.
Yeah.
I still have my responsibilities. Relationship, you can't just be on your phone all night.
sorry.
But like, that's the thing I'm learning right now. It's like, it's where do you put the energy and how do you juggle it and how do you, and it's great that people want to reach out and thank you. But like, sometimes it's like, it's too much.
Yeah.
And like, eventually you got to find that balance
It's
point.
I think it's great that he's taking this step to kind of, because he is, from where he was in 2017 to where he is now, huge work. And I'm so proud of him for working as hard as he has. Like, he's, from pretty much just being very vulnerable and very, he would cry all the time to, crying every once in a while.
I didn't cry all the time.
Yeah, you did. And that's okay. I know. It's okay to cry, and it's okay to be vulnerable, and it's okay to have emotions and open up. But now it's like, okay, it's great, and I'm so proud of him, and I'm sure it's not easy for him to come out, especially with his colleagues. I'm sure some of the police officers that know him probably make fun of him. But when when this first started, he was on his phone. I was like, oh my God, get the fuck off. From somebody else's perspective who,
Right.
who's on the other end of that, who's not involved in that journey. It's like, okay.
Well, now you're on the forefront doing podcasts too with them.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I've completely been pushed away from the microphone, by the way.
Well, it's because I talk really
Yeah, a lot. I'm just kidding.
Oh.
One thing I'm curious about through this conversation and just learning about sort of the thought process and what you were going through still responding. So we talked a little bit off air, and you see it on social media a lot. Like, a lot of the time police are coming, they used to be heroes in the 50s and 60s, and, truly blessed. I still think that what you all do for the community is intricate. It's just so important, and I still consider you heroes. But a lot of the time, for a lot of people, sometimes you're the villain.
Yeah.
Whether rightfully or wrongfully.
Yeah.
Some things happen. We have all the things in the States, of course, that come up and go viral, which are truly unfortunate, and I don't believe is a representation of police officers. Just to cut my point off a little bit, it's one of my favorite sayings is, police officers have millions of interactions a day, with people, and while still awful and unfortunate that once, it happens once a week or you get this viral moment like that. The odds, if you're looking at statistically, most interactions are very pleasant and or at least productive, or at least by the it's good.
Yeah.
It's the way it's supposed to be. Nonetheless, a lot of people, especially nowadays, and most vulnerable communities, consider police villains, or that they're the bad guys. They're the ones who take away things. There's a lot of back and forth, especially with racialized communities and underserved. And I guess, you do that now as a job. But my question is, and you can elaborate on it, is one, the thinking that got me to this question was, how much of these things that happen that are really unfortunate come from the fact of a brain injury, or that they have this PTSD undiagnosed and they're going through all this stuff and then something charges and makes it happen, and what does that kind of the outcome do to police officers' mental health, the morale you were talking about, the wellness, that I'm sure a lot of you are out there trying to be I just want to do good and help these people, but they think I'm quote unquote, and sorry for your friend, the pig, or it's kind of twofold, right? You get the one side that everything's happening, and probably that's what has to do with a lot of these really terrible situations. And that the outcome has now created this thing that now comes back at you the other way.
Yeah.
I take a look at the drug injection site thing that happened, or the tent city in Ottawa that just happened. And my Twitter was just full of just F the Ottawa police and this and that, I can't imagine that creates a good thing for you as well on the other end of it.
Yeah, I mean,
I know that was a lot.
No,
I do that. I tangent a lot.
That's right. Yeah, that plays a role in how we feel when we go out, right? Like, especially into some of the communities where we're not always liked, And I like to say that I'm a nice guy in and out of uniform. I don't really change much in and out of uniform. I mean, I have to put on my police voice at times, I like, you do, like, I have.
I know what that sounds
yeah. But you have to take control at times. But yeah, it definitely plays a role in it where, because it's like anywhere, right? There's bad apples everywhere.
Right.
There's bad apples in policing. There's bad apples in wedding dress selling, journalism, right?
Is,
It's everywhere. And it doesn't all stem, there's a lot of, in the racialized communities, there's a lot of newcomers to Canada, right? So these people already have an instilled fear of police from where they come from.
Right.
So I've done a lot of outreach with where I am now, and we go and we talk in uniform so that they can see that we're good people, we're human beings just like them, and it's not like back home where they come from, where the police might be corrupt. We are there to help, although it might not seem that way at times, right? Especially with some of the things that are going on within the media right now, right? With the trial that's going on, and so it makes our job a bit harder when we have to go to a call where they might not like us. I mean, you don't hear, like you said, the million good things that happen or the million good things that police officers do, because that doesn't sell a paper, right? I'm not saying that media is this horrible thing, but they want to only they're going to put stuff out that's going to sell, right?
Yeah.
And the fluffy stuff doesn't sell. I went through a personal situation where I was accused of racial profiling. Sued. I was sued with the service, and my name was mud for 3 days. So I had Dog Blog. I don't know if you heard of that one. I was just bashed all over these blogs and through the media, and what the media did was take my testimony and they chopped it up so much that even myself, I read it and I was like, I sound like a blubbering idiot. But it didn't happen that way. They just cut it up to make it sound like I was like stumbling over my words, and so yeah, it makes it difficult.
Yeah, and not to mention, like, when you win a case like that or whatever, like, they're gonna say, well, the system, was against them in the first place, right? Like, even if you win that suit,
right,
you're still not a winner, because maybe a lot of people would say, well, you won because you're white, or the system protects you off. Like, it's just. And
this is the education piece, right? And this is what my unit does. We go out and we educate people that, we educate, and we have to educate the police as well. So what we do in my unit is, for the new recruits that are coming in, we give them training, right? So we bring people in from, the Black community, the Muslim community, Jewish community, and they learn. When I first got into the unit, I went and sat on one of these courses that they were giving the new recruits, and I was like floored at what I was ignorant to growing up. So there's a learning piece on both ends, like learning for the community and learning for the police alike, and I think it's so important.
Absolutely, because not to say, like, I'm sure racial profiling does happen, like for not only officers but for everybody.
And that happened for me.
Yeah.
That happened for me. I was at work, and like, earlier Robin's like wedding dresses. That was like a random comment thrown in, like his spiel. But like, I sell wedding dresses, and it's like, I was racial profiled because I apparently had said you know, oh, like, I don't want you to try that on because it's over your budget. And then the next day I get on a review that says I didn't let them try it on because I assumed that they couldn't afford it because of the color of their skin. I'm going to tell you right now, I have no racial profiling, whatever, like racist bone in my body. I can't even kill a bug. But it happens not only to like, it doesn't happen. It happens all the time. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
To everybody.
So it's really, because I didn't know that the police officers also had that aspect where, you know, the members of the community were coming in and educating certain things. Like that, I think
That's
if a
important.
lot of people knew that, like
I think,
that's a, because that's what they, when you see people attacking police officers, like that's what they want, right? They want to be listened to and heard and their concerns heard.
That's exactly what it is.
And it is important because there are certain things that we don't understand or we don't get.
Yeah.
And going to your point, I mean, it'd be so much easier if it was, you could just have that conversation and just be like, oh my God, no, like that misunderstanding.
Oh God, yeah.
But unfortunately, once it gets on the internet, like it just,
You're
it's,
there.
it's gone.
There. It's gone.
Right? Like,
especially with him too. Like when he got like accused of racial profiling, like he didn't win that. He didn't win that court case. He lost.
Well, it was settled.
Well, you know what I mean.
But
Yeah.
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 So it's,
But he's not like it's just so unfortunate. I don't
it,
know.
but
was
that's
an
it.
unfortunate thing.
That's what it comes down to is education and giving people a voice, right? To speak and to be heard and
Listen
to have
to,
that conversation, right? And it's all about conversation because without it, there's two
You mean
sides.
communication.
What's a conversation? Communication.
Yeah.
But without it, there's two sides that think one thing about the other side, and there's nothing. There's no,
Exactly.
You
When
know, I'm not close to the microphone.
really, I mean, like you said, there's bad apples. I'm sure there's racist police officers. There's power abusers. Absolutely.
Oh, gosh,
All of that is true. But I think the majority of officers want to get in because they want to help people.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think that's the calling card for most.
Yeah.
And like you said, unfortunately, things get out of hand, and then everyone gets painted with a
Brush.
brush,
Right,
and
yeah.
it sucks. But you're right. The education part is truly
Yeah.
like how we're gonna get through this, and like listening to one another. It's like, okay, yeah, I get that, but also like the law is the law, that like that type of thing. And
Yeah.
officers
And-
aren't here to scare you or
Yeah.
you know, it just. I
Well,
mean,
and that's it. And that's what we even did it was called a Court 101 session. So we had a Crown attorney come in and talk about the court cases. Now, this was more for the trial that's going on at the moment, just so people could understand the process of how court works. Because most of the times you see, okay, this, you know, if it makes media, this happened, they're in court, this is the outcome.
yeah,
But you don't know what happens in between. You don't know how the actual court system works and how much work goes into that, you know, from both sides, defense and the Crown. And like, there's so much that goes into it. You know, without knowing and without being educated, you would have no clue what. You would just be like, well, how did that guy get off? Or how did that guy get accused? Like, you know, like, without knowing and without knowing someone else's background, you can't pass judgment on them.
yeah,
Right? And same with me. Like, you don't know me from hole in the wall, but I'm a police officer, so I'm automatically a bad guy in some people's eyes. Right? But I have a little story where I can say, this is how I work as a police officer, is that on that day that I deal with a person, that's how I treat them. The respect that I get from that person is the respect that I'll give, or the respect I give that I hope the respect I get back, right? It doesn't always work, but there was one day where I had a call that a landlord wanted this guy out. He was being evicted, or he was already evicted, and he was refusing to leave. So I'm going, and I was working in rural at this time, and it's fire. Like, it's my backup's fire. So I run him, I get all the information from him, and he's got quite the rap sheet. And I go in and I deal with the situation, and I buy him a bit more time, so he's happy that he gets to kind of gather his stuff together. And the landlord's happy because he's like, okay, he's going to be gone by, I think it was like 1 o'clock or something. So everybody's happy. I leave. I go out to my car, and I sit, and I'm doing my notes and my report. And all of a sudden I see the guy coming towards me, like, oh, you know, and I'm like, why? Like, who? He's coming out. He's upset about something, or
Right.
maybe the landlord's like just saying, yeah, fine, that's fine. And then he calls him and says, you're as soon as that cop's gone, you're out. I'm coming to throw your shit out, right? So the guy comes up to the car. He's like, can I ask you a question? I said, yeah. He goes, did you run me before you got here? I was like, yeah. He's like, so you saw all the things I've done? And he had some bad stuff on there, like some violent crimes. And I said, yes, I did. He's like, and you still treated me the way you treated me? I said, yeah. He's like, wow. He's like, thank you. And he shook my hand. And he's like, no one's ever treated me like that. Every other cop that I've dealt with, because of what I've done in the past, has been, he's like, sorry, an asshole to me. I was like, well, that's unfortunate. And I was like, but I don't, he's like, well, why would you treat me like that? And I said, well, because I don't know you. I know what you've done. I can see what you've done, but I don't know who you are until I get on scene. So if you came out and like, fuck you, pig, you're an asshole, well, things would probably have been different. I said, but you didn't do that. You know, you listened to my side, I listened to your side, and you are now able to have a bit more time. And I go away. We haven't fought. You're not under arrest. You know, and you're shaking my hand, and now you're going back in to pack your stuff up. Get out. But you know what I mean? Like, it was like, that was a good moment for me, because I'm like, well, maybe that guy now will go and say, well, maybe they're not all bad. So maybe he'll do things different.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So that is part of like that education. And that's just a small little thing where I'm like, this guy could have.
Because, yeah, as soon as someone sees that rap sheet, they probably go in guns a-blazing, and
that's
then
it.
that escalates that situation, and then we get into what we talked about.
Yeah.
That becomes that viral moment,
Yeah.
probably on the
Yeah.
on Twitter, and you're just like, oh, jeez. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's next? So you've come out on social media now. I know you're working with Sabrina,
Yeah.
who I'll let you talk about a little bit of that. But where do you want this to go? What are you trying to do? What are some things on the horizon that you're trying to make of this whole, you know, silver cop persona?
Yeah.
And you know, helping people.
Yeah, so my whole thing is to bring that educational piece and the mental health kind of the first aid program, right, to the service, so we can teach people to look for the signs, you know, for people. So if someone's off on using up all their IPP or all their sick time, something's going on, let's talk to them. You know, and there's not enough of that. So that's my big advocacy, is to raise that awareness and bring it and break and really just end that stigma of like, oh, we're tough, we're cops, we don't talk and we don't show our feelings and our emotions, right? No, fuck that. We're human.
Mm-hmm.
We are men and women that put on a uniform and go and serve the public. But if we're not good with ourselves, if we're not good inside, how the heck can we serve the public? How can we be a good service to them? You know, like, how am I supposed to help someone that's suffering from something if I'm suffering?
Yeah.
Like, if my bucket's already full, I can't have your shit on me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do, and that's what happens, you know, like, you're like, I'm not, you start thinking like, that fucking dodge calls, you know, it goes through your head, but you can't dodge calls. You have to go to the calls, but that's what's going through your mind. So you're not really a service out there. So that's what I want to do, is like, just bring that awareness and make sure people know that they can talk. And if my going public is people's voice for right now, but it gets them talking outside and with each other, or maybe someone they trust, or, you know, going to a doctor, then I've already done my job. And then, yeah, so that's my own personal advocacy with the police service. And sorry, one more thing. I do want, in the police service, I want to hold the people that think it's funny still, that people go off on PTSD. I want them held accountable. You know, I'm not going to say the staff sergeant's name that was bashing me and other people, and I know he's not the only one, but I want them held accountable. And if, you know, if I do get to meet with the chief, which I'm supposed to at some point, I'm going to bring these names up to him, because I think he needs to know who's working for him. you know, and they just, I think they need educating because they might think it's like maybe they're suffering inside. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe they're suffering and they're like, oh, fucking loser. And they're going home and suffering. So that's my, you know, that's my thing with the police. And I have to be careful because I don't know about you, but when I was going through a lot of my stuff, it was a lot of anger inside me. I was very angry at a certain point, and I was like, that's not a good feeling. It's a negative emotion, obviously, and you know, I try and stay away from that. And sometimes I can feel it, especially if I'm passionate about something. I get really passionate, and I come across. Sometimes I come across. This is where my sternness comes in. My voice, like it changes, and like I get really passionate when I speak sometimes. But it kind of angers me because I went through it. Right. So those emotions are real. That's like a trigger, right? Like I think back to like knowing that he said stuff and I'm like, fuck you. Like you don't know what I was dealing with. Yeah. You know, so me coming forward is now letting everybody know what I was dealing with. So as for Sabrina and I don't know, we want to kind of go into the schools and get them talk to them when they're young, right? Yeah. Because let's be honest, school is hard, right? I mean, when you're going through school, there's so many labels, right? You're jock, you're a nerd, you're a goth, you're whatever, there's so much out there, and you try and, oh my gosh, where do I fit in? And
kids are just mean.
And kids are
mean.
So
like,
mean.
And you're going through hormones, so where the heck? Oh shit!
Chair almost just took a nosedive on him.
Gosh, where do I fit in? And I'm like you're going through hormones. And you're like, so we want to go through and make sure that the kids know that it's okay to feel what you're feeling and go through some stuff, go through sad moments. And, you know, but we want to make it interactive. Like we want to really get the kids talking and not just be like, I know you've done stuff with Sabrina at the Royal Ottawa, right? So it's kind of like that scale, like where I guess to throw the ball around. And
right. Little brains. They have
little brains. That's it. Yeah. So we want to kind of do that as well. I won't go into too much because maybe Sabrina and I can come back on at some point.
Absolutely.
Plugging us and telling you we're going to be back on. But yeah, so we, you know, I don't want to
stay tuned.
Take too much of the credit. It's all mine. It's not Sabrina. It's all mine. But I think what her and I have planned, the collaboration, I think is going to be great. And I think we have a lot of plans, like, you know, for 2020. And I think getting into the kids at a young age. And, you know, she wants to talk about her growing up with what she dealt with and all her stuff, right? And I want to kind of let the kids know that if you do suffer from mental illness, it doesn't have to stop you in your tracks. You don't have to quit on your dreams and give up your dreams. And even if you're in your dream job, as I am, like this is all I've ever wanted to do is be a police officer. Even if you're in your dream job and something happens, you know, you suffer from mental anguish or mental illness or, you know, and PTSD in my case, don't be afraid to talk because I didn't lose my job. I still function at work. I'm still functioning with it. I'm still able to keep working. So it doesn't have to be the end of your dreams, right? And I think that's the biggest thing is like, it's like that goes back to this doesn't define who I am, right? I get to now know that I'm in control, right? PTSD, sure, it's a part of who I am, but it's not exactly who I am. You know, I live with it, and I can function, and I can work, and I can still do my job, the job I dreamed of doing. And now with this advocacy, I feel that I'm able to serve again. I don't know about you when you went through your stuff, but the guilt that I had going through it and coming off the road and doing this and like not being able to do the things I was doing before, not being able to serve the way I wanted to serve, that was eating away at me too. So even though I was recovering, I was still like not being able to like. That is a huge work in progress for me. The guilt.
Right.
I if I could get rid of two big things, it would be the anxiety and the guilt. Right now, I'd be better. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that guilt is definitely it eats at me. And I just. But again, it's all part of the work and all part of the journey, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely. Thanks for coming on, Dom. Thanks for joining him.
Thank you.
Really
awesome.
Appreciate you being open and vulnerable and sharing some of these stories. And I think I'm a huge believer not only in the youth aspect of mental health. Like for me, it's youth and workplace, similar to you, I guess. Fixing that, I think with youth, you can get them there with the resources. Like you might eliminate like 80% of adult problems. That's huge. But that like I said, I have the utmost respect for your profession and that you hear about all these things, but you don't really understand what that means. Yeah. You're like, first responders need extra therapy because they go through tough PTSD, and you're like, oh, that's really unfortunate. But what does that look like? What does that feel like? What does that learn? And I didn't know anything about PTSD before this podcast, and now having you and a couple other guests on and talking about it, like really just painting the picture of it all, and it's like, that's what I want, right? Like, to tell people what those feelings are and help people like put them in that mindset. So appreciate you coming on and.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely not easy for sure. But the more people talk about it, the more hopefully that could just slow, painfully slow. But we're getting there, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. And strength in numbers, right?
So people can follow you
on the Silver Cop, and Instagram at the Silver Cop.
The Silver Cop, Twitter, the Silver
Twitter,
Cop.
Silver Cop 1. So number 1
Someone
at the end
took
of
it,
it. Yeah, apparently. So there's a 1 at the end of it. And then I have I have a blog as well.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Where's that?
It's just the silvercop.com. Thesilvercop.com.
Okay. We'll make sure we link all that. Don't you
Yeah.
worry, folks. Robin, Dom, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit